I want to learn Chinese. And in that regard, I've been my own worst enemy. Let me recap the journey so far. In my first video, I laid out a plan to use Duolingo and Domino Chinese to learn Chinese, with some ancillary things that I could do in order to assist myself. Stuff like listening to Chinese music, Mandarin dubbed children's cartoons, and so on. In the second video, I went into a bit more detail in the teaching styles of Duolingo versus Domino, explaining that Duolingo is more focused on pure vocab, learning characters and phrases one after the other, while Domino is better for learning how to understand how characters work, how they're made up, and the different uses for them. In the third video, the last Chinese video, I went into how I was getting bogged down by the sheer amount of vocabulary, as well as my difficulties in listening and processing Mandarin as opposed to reading it. I also pretty much let loose that the Domino and Duolingo goals that I had set for myself were wildly unrealistic and that I had to recalibrate them. This leads us all neatly to now, where in the intervening time I've had the sobering realization that I need to essentially hit the reset button and recalibrate this entire project. But let's not get too negative. First, let's cover some wins. So, at the time of writing the script, I have finished a Learning Chinese with Duolingo YouTube short, though I haven't uploaded it just yet. I'm hoping to get 3 done so I can upload them all at once. The scripts are done, I just need to record and put it together. The sticky notes, while I haven't gotten to 100 just yet, have legitimately been helping me a lot. There have been several occurrences of me quickly being able to recall both characters while doing Duolingo and words when speaking, thanks to the exposure that the sticky notes provide. Some of the positions of them could be improved though. The one on my bedroom door that opens inwards barely sees the light of day. I also have been trying to speak a bit more to Honey in Chinese as well, and her family too, though I still get a bit of performance anxiety, so to speak. In my Peppa Pig watching, I can now understand the intro. Yeah! What's that? It's not that impressive? Well, it's better than last time I tried to watch, so I'll take that small win. And finally, the adjustments that I've made to how I do Duolingo and Domino have laid a pretty solid groundwork for how I'm going to go forward. Oh, and I've hit the 250-day streak milestone as well, so I think I can confidently say I've completed the streak-based goal. Minor downside is that I've dropped out of the Diamond League though, but that doesn't really bother me much. Okay, let's get into the meat and potatoes of this video with a bit of compare and contrast. Here is my Learning Chinese goal plan. And here is my creating an animation plan. What's the difference between the two? The word you're looking for is arrows. Yes, it's a weird thing to point out, but unlike the animation goal where arrows point to things which point to more things that expand out into yet even more things, the Duolingo goal just has one big checklist. I mean, yes, there are some arrows that point to the long checklists, but they don't really imply any sort of real flow. It's understandable, and there's a reason for that the online learning resources are just that, lists of lessons, topics, of items that need to be checked off in order to be marked as complete. Let's take Duolingo as example. There are 5 levels in each topic, 6 if you include the mastery, and after achieving each level, Duolingo presumptuously proclaims, "You can now recognize these words. You're now fluent with these characters. You could write a dissertation on the correct usage of these syllables." Alright, I made that last one up, but you get my point. Duolingo makes an assertion that now that you've completed this level of learning, you should now be able to do X. And my response has always been, wait, should I? This isn't Duolingo's fault, mind you. They do say to write down the characters you've learned and do stuff off of Duolingo to reinforce the lesson learnings. The problem is that Duolingo, in its teaching method, doesn't exactly enforce that message. The point system, the rankings, and all the competition, it trains the user to think, if you're learning the language, do it here to increase your score. Any non-Duolingo learning almost feels like a waste since it isn't part of the gamified system. That also has been the reason why I've been falling behind on my Domino learning, because yeah, I could sit down and focus on watching a Domino Chinese video, spend 40 minutes getting an entire topic done, or I could try and rack up more points. Get further on the path, get those topic achievements. This reflected in my original goal, a list of topics of checkpoints of videos that once achieved could be marked as complete. This isn't how learning works. Going back to my bread and butter, music, when you learn a new piece, you don't just drop it and move on to the next one. You have to continuously revise, review, and practice it. Though I've certainly been slack in learning new piano music recently, it's hard to find the time between all of my other goals and video production. I used to frequently go through revival periods where I would single-mindedly focus on touching up and revisiting past pieces of music so I could polish them back up to a decent quality. Duolingo and Domino need to be the same. Yes, while Duolingo does reincorporate certain characters from past lessons into future lessons, many of them are just too specific to be used that often. Blindly focusing on soldiering on forward into even more characters doesn't give time for the old ones to take root. Things take root not just from revision, but also usage. These words are key, and combined with the third pillar of learning, we get the total integration experience. First you learn, then you reinforce by using it and revising it. As I mentioned in the last video, there are also parts of a language, reading it, speaking it, and listening to it. All of these are part of each step of integration as well. You learn to read, speak, and listen. You use it by reading, speaking, and listening, and you revise by practicing reading, speaking, and listening. Let's keep these things in mind as I introduce the new and updated plan. Ah, yes, look at all these arrows, look at the shape and the flow, much better, very much better. Alright, so what are we looking at here? 3 sections, learning, revision, and usage, 3 paths to be taken simultaneously. The most straightforward is the learning, the domain of Duolingo and Domino Chinese. Rather than a list, this time I have a plan. Duolingo first. Starting with getting to the end of checkpoint 3, I do make a note that I'll be using the trickle method, which I outlined last Chinese video, which, for those who haven't watched that video, essentially means getting a new topic to level 1 each week, but with the added caveat that every 3 weeks, or 3 topics, I use a week to revise. This goes on until I complete checkpoint 3. Completion in this case means doing the test at the end of the checkpoint, which grants me access to checkpoint 4. Instead of charging right into the content of checkpoint 4, I instead plan on taking 2 whole months, the general gap between releasing a video and writing the script for the next one of the same topic, to purely revise everything I have learned so far. Hopefully, during this time, I'll be able to achieve the next step, which is getting all of the checkpoint 3 to gold, which is to say, level 5 completed. If I haven't by the end of 2 months, then I don't continue until I do. Only then will I allow myself to proceed to checkpoint 4 using the same trickle-down method. Halfway through checkpoint 4, after completing level 1 of the topic named exam, I take another long break to revise and get checkpoint 3 up to legendary, which is level 6. I then will continue checkpoint 4 until the end, then golding that as well. This is a much more defined and slower pace than any of my original plans and goals implied, which for reference had me completing the Duolingo Chinese course in a couple of months from now. A ridiculous goal in hindsight. Using where I am now, I don't see completing this goal for about 70 weeks. This is a wild change from my original goal, which, let me remind you, was around 50 weeks for the bulk of checkpoint 2 and a large portion of checkpoint 3. If I had done something with similar timeframe when I started this Chinese goal, another 40 or so weeks would have likely been added on top of that 70-week total. Domino also gets a change, though less certain timeframes than Duolingo. Mainly the fact that I plan on re-watching the courses. As outlined, now that I'm one section off completing the Chinese level 1 course when writing the script, which I'll definitely have done by the video's release, I'll start with re-watching the entirety of the intro course. Then I'll re-watch the entirety of the Chinese level 1 course twice. Only then, when I've sat through just shy of 23 hours worth of educational Chinese content and delicious Felix cringe, will I finally allow myself to move on to the Chinese level 2 course. That said, at the completion of the level 2 course, I'll watch through level 1 yet again, before watching level 2 yet another 2 times. Now, this might seem a little wild when I've been struggling to meet my original Domino watching goals, but here's the main thing. While the first watch through will be predominantly focused, the subsequent watch throughs won't be as much. I'll do them whilst doing other things, most likely in this case, drawing or rigging up a VTuber model, stuff like that. Essentially, I'll be replacing what I would have otherwise spent watching something on YouTube with re-watching the Domino Chinese courses. There's really not much else to say in that regard, or in regards to learning in general. Learning, in this case, let me reiterate, being the focus of learning new vocabulary and enhancing my understanding. Let's move on to the next section and take a look at revision. First, let's start off with probably one of my better ideas that really has been succeeding: sticky notes. Going forward, I'm going to aim to have at least 5 per Duolingo topic, which sounds about right since normally there's a minimum of 4 new characters per lesson per topic. This will also encourage me to do Duolingo in the morning at my desk, where the sticky notes are, instead of in bed just before I go to sleep. The goal, however, isn't to maximize the number of sticky notes that I have, it's to not require them anymore. Which is why the next step, rather than having 100 sticky notes, is to have 100 defunct sticky notes. That is to say, sticky notes no longer used or required. I'll get a cheap scrapbook so I can stick all of my old sticky notes inside of it, and it'll be really neat to look back when all is said and done. Next step is the much teased YouTube Shorts. I mentioned in my last vlog that one was already done, and that I'm hoping to get 2 more done before this video's release. Since the core of the images for the shorts are done, I already have a bunch of scripts ready, that much should be easy. However, I'm planning to try and get 1 out per week. This may mean that the tone of each video may differ from the original vision of, "Isn't it funny that learning Chinese via Duolingo is like this?" And instead a mix of videos like that, but also some videos which are straight up, as I understand it type videos. What I really hope is that people that actually understand Mandarin Chinese will correct any mistakes that I unintentionally put in the videos. The final goal at the end is to have 60 shorts total. Now, I just need to get off my lazy butt and start making them. Now, the big one, which also crosses into the usage category, streaming. Streaming has done wonders for my drawing skills, and I'm hoping the same locked-in practice will do the same for Chinese. I'll aim to do the streams once a week at least, without replacing any of my existing streams. I'm not sure that I'll have a set time, but I'll likely try to make it an afternoon stream. One of the things I said I'd be doing on stream in regards to learning Chinese is the little Shentian Chinese education game, so I've explicitly put it in the plan. One of my more ambitious goals is to try and have a Chinese-only stream, within reason. I've got a couple of people that attend my streams that certainly do not speak Chinese, so if they would ever pop up, or if anyone asks me a question in English, I'll respond in English. I don't want to ignore anyone. I likely won't start doing them straight away, perhaps a few months in, but I'll definitely try to do them. Maybe I'll also play a game where I select Chinese language and subtitle options. It could be fun. Now that we're in usage, I've got a couple of ideas, though these ones are the most up in the air. First, an interesting one would be something completely out of left field: writing and recording a song in Chinese. This one sounds both fun and terrifying. I'm a terrible lyricist at the best of times, and trying to write lyrics in a foreign language is just going to exacerbate that problem. Odds are, despite my more jazzy inclinations, the lyrics will not match tonally at all, which will be hilarious. The idea of watching Mandarin language television for children makes a strong return, but this time with a new challenger. Xi Yang Yang Yu Hoi Tai Lang, or in English, Pleasant Goat and Big Big Wolf. Excuse my pronunciation. Unlike Peppa Pig, which I will still try and watch, this one is Chinese through and through, and has been running for over 12 years. And unlike Peppa Pig, which is restrained to a few episodes on ABC iView, it looks as though pretty much all of Xi Yang Yang Yi Hui Tai Lang is on YouTube. I do want to better define what exactly my goal is by watching beyond improving my listening, but a potential end goal is translating an entire 12-minute episode into English. The one problem with that goal is, though, that uploading it may result in copyright issues, so I'll workshop it to see what I can do. The final idea I have for usage, at least one that's more quantifiable than talk more to my honey in Chinese, is having a definitive and measurable way of talking to her family. And for this, I turn to WeChat. Now, there are a lot of issues with WeChat, its lack of security chief among them. It is, however, the primary method of communication in China, and especially with people in China from abroad. Since my old phone broke a while ago, I haven't bothered resetting it up, but that was a mistake, so indeed I will set it up and aim to send a recorded audio message at least once a week. Mundane things like telling Honey's family about our past week and letting them know of things that have been happening. Text messages I'll likely send more regularly, but since speaking is much weaker than my writing and reading, the audio message is the key part. I think that about covers the version 2 of the plan, or maybe better to say version 2.0, since there may be a few minor adjustments here and there in regards to the usage section, and maybe even the revision section. I've been looking at other things I can watch, and there's stuff like Learning with Meow Meow, which is a series also aimed towards young kids to teach them Mandarin. though I feel as though if I consume too much kids content, my brain may start melting out of my ears. While I do have SMART goals, pretty much all of which are defined in the plan itself, I'll create myself a calendar with recurring events to mark off today is the day a short should be released, and make sure to send an audio message to Honey's family, and all of that good stuff. If all goes well, as I said, because I reckon Duolingo will be the longest, I can mark this plan as fulfilled in 70-ish weeks, which is, well, I'll add an extra 5 weeks for a buffer for the wedding and the honeymoon. Pretty much early February 2024. Ooh, it seems like a while away, but like I learned with my previous goals, if you don't consistently work at it, far-off dates have a habit of sneaking up on you. Let's hope this revised and much more realistic plan can actually be stuck with. I'll try my best. If you want to see how it goes and watch me grow in understanding Chinese, subscribe to stay notified. As a side note, I drew those circles in the middle to go with the three-sided yin-yang visual motif, but I don't actually know what they should represent in this context. If you've got any ideas, let me know in the comments. I'm thinking there'll be something like a final test or a prize or something like that when I complete a section. I'd love if you did contribute an idea. After all, it's we attempt new things, not I attempt new things. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you have a fruitful day.